5 days ago, Robert Hutton published this article on the Screenrant website, and to be fair, when I read the title, I was like, this might be an interesting piece about how much the Amazon series, The Wheel of Time, changed the actual books in terms of the storytelling. So after I read the article, however, I was left speechless with the stupidity that is presented in this article. And it's just terrifying that some people don't even grasp the simplest of concepts in these books. Um, and it's just terrible. So, what the title suggests, so it says Wheel of Time's Dragon Reborn reveal was disappointing if you've not read the books. It was disappointing even if you've read the books. It was the culmination of the first book, this first confrontation of Rand with what you then assumed to be maybe an incarnation of the Dark One. Um, but if you read the books, you know that it wasn't, the last battle. It wasn't the final event and the final conflict. So that was just the beginning of the story, and it was Rand's first confrontation. And even in the book, in the Eye of the World, at the end, it's so much more um, than what was shown in the series. And they completely ruined it. It's not just bad. It's not just disappointing. It's terrifyingly bad. Um, they could have handled it, surely. If there were competent screenwriters, competent directors, competent, visual arts directors, they could have perfectly done it. And the VFX people were probably overworked already, pushed too hard for not enough money. So, I mean, I don't really blame them if they botched it. But if there was a director for the special effects who was competent enough, they could have definitely handled this. They could have handled this entire show. And it's not just the Dragon Reborn reveal that is disappointing or even bad, but it's the whole of the series, and it doesn't do justice to this, fantasy masterpiece that Robert Jordan started and Brandon Sanderson finished. So what it says is that the reveal of Rand al'Thor as the Dragon Reborn at the end of the Wheel of Time Season 1 may not have been a big surprise, but it was disappointing, particularly for viewers who hadn't read the books that the Prime Video series is based on. The revelation was faithful to the source material, in which Rand is the dragon, but the show also changed so much from Robert Jordan's original story and had these things going in a much more interesting direction with its adaptation. So it says that they changed so much from the Robert Jordan story, but just below the title they say, while it's true to the source material. Of course, this last confrontation with Rand between Rand and Balsamon, but no, it's not true to the source material because um, in this final conflict, Rand sees his mother. His mother is basically kept by the Dark One because the Dark one of his many names is the Lord of the Grave. So he basically has the souls of everyone who has died, including Rand's mother. His not his birth mother because he never met her. So it was basically his stepmother, his adoptive parents, Tam al'Thor and Carrie al'Thor. So Carrie was the one who Rand sees, not Egwene with a baby. And also he is revealed as a dragon reborn to, the soldiers of Shinar who are at that moment fighting the Trollocs in um, Tarwin's Gap, which isn't a fortress, it's just a big ravine. So, he basically destroys all the Fades and the Trollocs there. So, it's much more than is shown in the series, and in the series it's just bad. It's badly written. The actor who plays Balsamon, he's good, but the whole context is completely removed. It's just Moiraine and Rand who are going to the Eye of the World, which looks nothing like the Eye of the World as described. Um, while in the books they all go. I mean, even Loyal is there, the Ogier, who gets killed, but not really killed by Fate Blade at the end of this season. Something which couldn't be healed, definitely. Um, Not by the most, practiced in Aes Sedai or Aes Sedai apprentice or Wilder at that point, which is Nynaeve. So she couldn't heal it because she was completely drained in the series uh, by destroying the Trolloc army. So no, it's not faithful to the books, and the entire story is, completely ruined basically at this point. So, there are so many characters that are completely ruined. So let's see what the Amazon series teased for a more interesting direction. So, the Dragon Reborn in the Wheel of Time is a prophesized figure who is the reincarnation of the legendary dragon Lusterin Telamon. Moraine believes that the Dragon Reborn is fated to both save and destroy the world and be a key figure in the battle between light and dark. Um, it's not only Moraine, it's basically a prophecy that says this. So she's not the only one who thinks that the Dragon Reborn will either save or destroy the world. Um, she's not. I mean, it's basically common knowledge. Uh, there's this big prophecy um, that is known all over the Westlands, all over um, the the countries where we spend most of our time in the first three books and later on as well. So while there were always hints that Rand was the Dragon Reborn, this series and its promotional material went out of the way to suggest that one of the other four youths Moraine takes from Edmund's Field might turn out to be the dragon. Yes, and this is true, and this is very bothersome because it's very clear from the beginning that Rand is special in the books. Um, because, and it might be weird to say, but the diversity of Edmund's Field in this series just completely breaks apart that feeling that Rand is special. Because in the books, I mean, he's living in Edmund's Field, which is a part of the Two Rivers district, which is basically a homogeneous population of white people with darker hair. And he is taller than the rest of them. He has reddish hair, and he is actually a bit paler. So he is different, and he's the only one who is different. So this guy is special. Then there is something going on with this guy um, that is revealed later on. His ancestry is revealed. His true purpose is revealed. Um, but this homogeneous population is, just the beginning. And by clearing that out for a more diverse Edmonds field, you get you don't get this feeling that Rand is special. You rather have the feeling that he's just some guy. And throughout the story, they don't focus on Rand, especially. So they focus on all of them, and you don't get the feeling that Rand is special at all. Well, in the books, you get this feeling that something's going on with him that is not spoken, but I mean, it because this is just clear in the books, and they fail to make it clear in the series. So in the season 1 finale of the Wheel of Time, Moraine realizes that Rand is a true dragon, leading to his first confrontation with the Dark One. This is true to the books and was perhaps seen as necessary to avoid rewriting the source material even more drastically, but he didn't confront the Dark One, he confronted Balsamon or Ishamael. That's who he confronted, not the Dark One himself. Um, while Balsamon uses the true power, which emanates from the Dark One, he is not the Dark One. And Moiraine, it is true that she realizes fairly late that Rand is the dragon, and I mean, he goes to tell her himself in the books as well. If I remember correctly, it's been a while since I read the Eye of the World, but I mean, she thinks it's either Matt, Perrin, or Rand, not Egwene or Nynaeve at all, because the simple fact is that the Dragon Reborn is male and a male channeler, but she isn't sure which one can channel because, I mean, female channelers can feel If another woman is present who can channel, but they can't feel it for men, so she isn't sure which one of them is a dragon reborn. So not Egwene and not Nynaeve. That is very clear. So from the perspective of someone only viewing the streaming series, Rand is probably the least interesting choice for the dragon, creating an element of disappointment going into the Wheel of Time season 2. And that is true as well because I first saw the series before I read the books, um, which isn't good at all because it completely ruined my perspective on the story. It was very confusing because a lot of it isn't clear, and then seeing Rand as the Dragon Reborn, it was disappointing. If you've not read the books, but if you read the books, it's even more disappointing, and it's just terrible writing, and yeah, it completely ruins the show and the book series, or it might put people off from the books. So if you haven't read the books, I really recommend them. They're really great. 14 of them, so it's gonna take a while. 12,000 pages, so um, but it's a really great story, and it's very immersive, very well described as well, which Amazon fails as well. So, in Jordan's The Eye of the World, which is the basis of the first season, Moiraine only considers Rand, Perrin, and Mat as possible dragons. As I've said, the dragon is presented as being an exclusively male figure in the gendered schema of Robert Jordan's magic system, and his association with the male inability to control the One Power without going insane is part of what makes him such a threat to light and dark alike. In fact, it was Lucer and Telemon's attempt to seal the Dark One away that led to the corruption of the male force of Saidin and the end of the male Aes Sedai. So, yeah, this is true, and the dragon is presented as being exclusively male because the dragon reborn. The dragon is Lucer and Telamon. So, the dragon reborn is a reincarnation of Lucer and Telamon, and it is required of him to be a male by the pattern, uh, because otherwise you wouldn't have this additional threat that they go insane, because it's only the men who go insane because of the taint on Saidin. And with the females, it isn't the case because Saidar isn't tainted, but they fail to present the magic system, which is fairly straightforward. They Amazon fails to present it in such a way that you understand it. It's it's very random in this series. It's not well explained, and it also takes away the importance of the Dragon Reborn as a male figure. So Amazon's Wheel of Time teases that Egwene or Nynaeve could also be the Dragon Reborn. In promotional appearances prior to the series release, its creators teased that the Dragon Reborn's identity was a mystery, as stated that it could be a female character or someone different from the books. There are also suggestions that there have been female false dragons in the past, claiming the mantle of the legendary figure. These teases are a major factor to why the series' decision to have Rand be the dragon after all was so disappointing, as the teases of something more interesting made sticking with the book's choice feel overly safe. And I don't remember there being any female false dragons, because the prophecy was known that the dragon would be reborn and that it would be a man. So why there would be any female false dragons in the past? So people who claim to be the reincarnation of Luster and Telamon, um, that's a mystery to me. I don't remember any of them being female, so I only know of the male ones. So I don't believe that there were any females, because they would have been just ignored. Seriously, the White Tower would have swooped in and just taken them to the tower, and gentled them, took their power away, and be like, just be quiet and don't say anything because you're just lying. Um, so no, there were no female false dragons. Um, so why would there be? Because Saidar isn't tainted, and that's that's one of the points. The male Aes Sedai caused the breaking of the world. So saying that the dragon would be reborn as a female who don't have this taint, that she would break the world, but she wouldn't go insane. So it would be a deliberate choice to break the world and to go to the dark side, to the dark one. Uh, while for the men, it isn't that simple. They are corrupted by this taint on Saidin. So, I mean, that's why they go insane and cause the breaking, or might cause the breaking in the case of the Dragon Reborn. So, I mean, it's more of an issue for the men who channel than for the women who channel, because for them it's a deliberate choice, and for the men not necessarily to break the world. So, it's necessary to be a male to have this dynamic. So Amazon Prime's Wheel of Time series had already signaled that it is willing to make major changes to Robert Jordan's source material, including leaving out characters from The Eye of the World and making its core cast more diverse and slightly older than in the original novels. However, making another character dragon would have been an even bigger and bolder shift that would make both book readers and show-only fans unsure of what was to come, and that is nothing uh, like what book readers would want. Book readers want a faithful adaptation of their story, not something that is completely changed. And you know, even though we have the story and can always read the story again, if you make a show on it, you expect it to be true to the source material and not some fan fiction and weird changes and subversions that lead just to a bad show. So part of the reason why the Dragon Reborn, they always use dragon, but Lucifer and Telamon was the dragon, and it's the Dragon Reborn because the dragon is dead. Might be especially disappointing to fans who started with the streaming series is that the show has done a poor job presenting Rand as an interesting character. All the other Taveran have intriguing subplots, whether it be Perrin's connection to the wolves, mass corruption by the dagger, or Egwene and Nynaeve's introduction to the Aes Sedai. But Nynaeve and Egwene aren't Taveran. Not in the books and in the show. I mean, why would they do it? I don't know. Matt and Perrin are Taveran. Rand is a Taveran. So they bent the pattern around them. And Egwene and Nynaeve's accomplishments in the story up until the 14th book are, created by themselves. They make their own story. And it's just far better to leave it that way, because if they would be Taveran, for example, the accomplishment of Egwene um, in the later books would be worthless because she just got it because she was a Taveran and that the pattern bent around her. So while in the books she made this accomplishment herself through sheer will and endurance and being strong of mind and of body, and that's how she got where she got in the end. Um, Nynaeve as well, and they learn throughout the story, and Rand and Matt and Perrin are more bound to this Taveran nature. I mean, they get more um, of their accomplishment of their accomplishments through this Taveran nature. And Egwene and Nynaeve they are just human. They don't have any they are channelers, but apart from that, they're not the variants, so the pattern doesn't bend around them, and that makes them interesting characters because they do it all themselves, and it's fantastic. Certainly, Egwene's story, it's magnificent. Certainly at the end, um, so them being Tavern would just ruin that. So Rand comes across as something of a generic hero. I mean, he's just a guy. So he's not even a hero, it's a guy. So in the books, this is mitigated somewhat by having him be the most frequent viewpoint character, making readers empathize with him, but this is harder to build in a visual medium. Well, if you focus the story on him, it isn't any different than a visual medium. You can spend more time with Rand and then, making the viewers empathize with him. So I mean, that's not really harder in a visual medium. Then the series also removed a significant subplot involving Rand and changed the first book's ending, reducing his agency in beginning the final confrontation. So in the beginning they said it's true to the books, but now they say they changed the book's ending. So they're not really sure what it is apparently. And for that removed subplot, I mean it's done with all the characters. Um, so they just changed all the characters. Perrin's story is less for it. Matt's story is less for it. Loyal's story is less for it. Rand's story is less for it. Egwene and Nynaeve's story is less for it. Because they just ruined characters. They ruined Matt. They killed off Tamal Thor. They made Abel Coffin the father of Matt. They made him a bad dad, a drunkard, while he's just a good father in the books. Um, they ruined Loyal. I mean, they killed him off basically at the end of the first season, but apparently they didn't. So there's so much wrong with it. They even ruined Peyton Fane, uh, his character arc. Even that is ruined. They ruined the ending, and seriously, even if they can't handle even those things, just as simple keeping true to these characters, then what are they going to do later on when the books actually get more diverse and get more interesting? um, they'll just fail even harder because apparently they can't comprehend this stuff. They can't even comprehend the character. So, uh, I mean, why would you even continue to do this series if they just don't care? So, revealing Rand as the dragon also undercuts efforts to introduce more diversity to the Wheel of Time's fantasy setting. For all the expanded roles given to women and persons of color in the Amazon Prime Video adaptation, it is ultimately still a white man who gets to be the chosen one, as in so many fantasy stories that have come before. A daring but more interesting choice would to change the identity of the dragon or to subvert what the Dragon Reborn means altogether. Um, yeah, this is just plain stupidity. Yeah, it is white man. So what? I mean, seriously, is that so bad? I mean, Robert Jordan was a white man who wrote this. So why is it weird that a white man is the guy to save the world or to destroy the world? And it's not like it's like they have two options, or the Dragon Reborn has two options, either to be present at Tarmangaiden or at the last battle and participate on the side of life, which isn't an assurance that the side of light will win, or cause a new breaking of the world and just go insane. So those are basically the two options he has. And yeah, that's not really much of a choice now, is it? I mean, it's an immense pressure on this character, so he does make a lot of mistakes later in the books. So he isn't, a hero who does everything right, and it's not because he's a white man that everything goes his way. It's not even because he's Tavern that everything goes his way, because there's still some bad stuff happening, and by changing that to women, to women, or to one woman, or just destroy the concept of the Dragon Reborn. It's not going to solve that because Rand will still go insane because he can channel, so he will cause a new breaking. So, why would you even change or subvert what the Dragon Reborn means? Because it's not a difficult concept. I mean, it's just the reincarnation of Luthor Telamon, and it becomes clearer later in the books why it is. Because I mean, he basically hears the voice of Luthor in his mind. He's basically schizophrenic. There's another person living in his head who's constantly trying to take over. So it's not really a fun experience being the Dragon Reborn. But apparently they think it's just a hero who will do everything right, and it's not. So I mean, maybe this author should have read the books first before saying this stuff. because it's dumb. I mean, why would a woman be the Dragon Reborn? She doesn't. She has basically either the choice to become a new Dreadlord, so to become a channeler who fights for the Dark One, or to fight on the side of light without any consequence of going insane and break the world. So, I mean, it wouldn't solve anything. It would take away a huge part of the Dragon Reborn's identity. And I mean, yeah, knowing Amazon, they could definitely do it. So, but they didn't, luckily. But they're still going to ruin the story because it's ruined already. So, who should have been the Dragon Reborn in Amazon's Wheel of Time? So, there are a number of potentially more interesting answers. The most interesting single person would have been Egwene, a female dragon reborn who is part of the Aes Sedai, would have caused interesting conflict and tension both within the White Tower and in the wider world. Yeah, in the White Tower because they wouldn't want that. Um, they would have kept her and until the last battle and then released her. And I mean, she wouldn't go insane, so she probably would still fight on the side of light. So I mean, it wouldn't change anything uh, to her character in that sense. Um, so this choice also would have created an interesting character arc for Rand as he tries to cope with his lover's ever-growing power and prophesized role. But in the books, they aren't lovers. They were never lovers to begin with. It was like just the assumption of that they were to be married to each other. So they were not lovers. Maybe they looked at each other, romantically, but they were never lovers. It's never described as such. So they also changed that in the series. Again, for no reason. Another option would have been to turn the notion of the Dragon Reborn on its head and reveal that all five of the Tavern from Edmund's Field were the dragon and that they collectively would all lead up to saving and breaking the world. This would turn the Wheel of Time into much more of an ensemble show with equal weight placed on all five character arcs. However, there's a chance that this ending would be seen as a cop-out, particularly by viewers who are new to the story, and it would ruin the other character arcs as well because all of these five characters are important and they do important stuff and they each have their part to play. And certainly later in the books, this is very well worked out with the different storylines, even from other characters. So, and as I've said before, there's only three Taveran. So Rand, Mad, and Perrin, not Egwene and Nynaeve. Um, so it would ruin five character arcs completely by picking this notion that all five characters would be the Dragon Reborn. It also wouldn't make sense, so they would all be, equally sharing the, reincarnation of Lucifer and Telamon. How would that work? Each 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 of them hears the voice of Lucifer on a different day in the week, and then they get the weekend off, or how would it even work? It's just a notion that they place in this article without thinking of the consequences. So, the world of the Wheel of Time is rooted in prophecy and recurrence, with the titular wheel referring to a pattern of history that happens again and again. So, why would it suddenly change? It's the same pattern that is repeated over and over again. So, given this, one of the most interesting options might be to reveal that there was no dragon after all. That is, that the prophecies were wrong and that our heroes have to create their own fate. This would make the Amazon adaptation a direct subversion of Robert Jordan's original Wheel of Time books and much more unpredictable for fans both new and old, even maintaining persistent doubt about whether Moraine's belief in the prophecy is correct and would have made for a more interesting adaptation. It would completely ruin the books. Completely. No dragon after all. I mean, so Lucifer Telamon never existed then. I mean, he never was part of the 100 companions who sealed away the Dark One for at least an age. He didn't go mad, then he didn't create Dragon Mount. Then all the male channelers didn't go insane. I mean, they just went insane because they're men then. Because I mean, If there was no dragon, there would be no taint on Saidin. So that would have never happened. So everything would fall apart if you do that. So no, that our heroes have to create their own fate. They are creating their own fate, but they are still bound to the pattern. So so eventually it's the pattern that decides, but they can still make their own choices. But if it all goes wrong, the pattern will rectify itself. So um, there's not many very big important choices to be made by the character. I mean, they make a lot of choices, but you have this feeling in your head that it's also guided by the pattern, because the pattern guides everything, and it's a recurrence of events, not specifically in the same way that they happen, but there are similar events happening, and there are similar characters, and it's, if you would do this, if you would just completely scrap the dragon, there would be no Dragon Reborn. And so this is what they mean. In this article, they don't even know the difference between the dragon and the Dragon Reborn. So I think they mean the Dragon Reborn in this case. So instead of dragon, because it's a different thing. The dragon is Lucifer and Telamon, and the Dragon Reborn is his reincarnation in a later age. And they don't know what they're talking about, and that's why they come up with these stupid options that would completely ruin the books and the stories. And they say that the real problem is not that the Wheel of Time stuck with Rand as the dragon, but that it spent so much effort trying to create doubt among viewers that the series didn't make the final reveal satisfying, especially for new fans. By including more of Rand's story from the books and being more straightforward in marketing around the series, Amazon's The Wheel of Time could have avoided having the Rand reveal feel like a disappointment. As it is, the series raises a lot of intriguing possibilities that it ultimately doesn't follow through on. That's because they just want to be like, ha, gotcha. I mean, like these moments, you thought you had it right, but guess what? You were wrong. Um, it doesn't do justice to the books, and ultimately the show falls flat. It's bland, it's generic in terms of visuals. I mean, it's not very inspired. It's again it's boring, and they could have done so much better. They could have included more characters from the Wheel of Time that are important later on in the story. They could have just left Abel Coffin a good father. They could have let Matt be, he was corrupted by the dagger, but he was never evil, or you know going towards evil like it's presented in the show. I mean, Loyal is a fun character, and he gets killed off, and he's completely ruined. They ruined also the notion of the ways, so where from which they used to get to Faldara for to get to the Eye of the World, which is in the series basically a one-way street that is shown, and in the books it's this massive complex of floating islands and roads and diversions and all of this, which makes it incredibly difficult to navigate, and dangerous to navigate. So they ruin so much of the story that in the end, I mean, not only the story was disappointing, or the review was disappointing, but the entire story was, how they handled it was very disappointing, and it's sad to see. It's not going to be better in season two. So, do you agree with this article, or do you have your own thoughts about it? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing. If you didn't, I thank you for watching, and see you guys in the next one.